It's the Crucial 30. Bro, I know you can do it.
Hello, 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 world. We are so excited for us to be here this evening. Today is a very, very special occasion, a very special panel to me and everyone else that we have on this panel. Today, we are going to talk about mental health. We understand that, guess what? This is a subject a lot of us don't want to speak about, but it is time to stop the stigma. Right now, we have backstage some amazing individuals that I am going to bring up one by one to just tell a little bit about themselves, their passion for this subject, and what they have to share with the world this evening. Stay tuned, share, repost, because it's time to talk. Here we go. Welcome to the Crucial 30. We are the narrative shift. Up first, we are going to have Stephen Sharp Jr. I'm going to bring up Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to our broadcast. Stephen, can you just tell the world who you are and what you do and why is mental health so important just for you in your own personal journey?
Yeah, of course. As you said before, I'm Stephen Sharp Jr. I'm a content creator on Instagram. So yeah, I've just kind of, I went from fashion and got into social media, and here we are. But yeah, as far as like mental health is concerned, it's always been like in the back of my brain, but it wasn't until like last year that I really had my mental health kind of took a turn. Like I've always been very like self-reliant and very like focused on like what I could do for myself. But it was the first time that I was like, I need help. And then realizing that, no one really talks about this, and, realizing that I have a platform to talk about that. So incorporating mental health topics into my content has changed my outlook overall, and it's allowed me to, use my voice in a lot of great ways to encourage people and to, break the stigma and really start having real conversations about mental health.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to dig in more to how you feel and everything in a minute. Next, I'm going to bring up Dr. Trista Perez. Dr. Trista. This is Dr.
Hello.
Trista. Hello. Dr. Perez, Dr. Crawford, I should say. I'm sorry. I know Trista from childhood, and I am always saying her original last name. But Dr. Crawford, please forgive me. Dr. Crawford, could you just tell a little bit about yourself and what your passion is and why mental health?
Okay, so hi, I am Trista Perez Crawford, and I am a clinical child psychologist at Children's Mercy Hospital. So I work with kids from basically 2 years of age up through young 20s who have any number of mental health concerns or developmental concerns like anxiety, depression, trauma history, all of that. And my particular passion is working with underserved populations, so people who regularly don't have access to healthcare because they live in an urban population, lower socioeconomic groups, they live in a rural community, or are Spanish speaking. So I also work with Spanish speaking populations and am also a bilingual psychologist. So for me, mental health has been a passion of mine basically my whole life, because I recognized in my own family that there was a lot of disparities in the kind of care that we received from our health to mental health. We don't talk about depression, anxiety, substance abuse, any of those types of things in general in the Black or Latino communities. And so there's a lot of stigma behind getting help for these things. And I've always been really passionate about reaching out and trying to normalize things that, weren't uncomfortable for us to talk about, and making sure that our communities were being served by people who look like us. And I think that that's a really challenging thing, because it's really important to be able to connect with the people that are working with you and be able to see yourself in them. And for me, that was what helped me get. So I've always been passionate about giving to other communities.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love it. I love it. And we have to see ourselves in who we have in our professions as well as when we're reaching out for help, and that has to come more and more. So Trista, thank you so much for that. Next up, we have Dr. Dejuan Reed, and we are going to bring her up.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Dr. Dejuan M Reed, and I own a private practice in Spring, Texas, which is right outside of Houston, Texas. I specialize in anxiety and depression, relationships, and trauma. So I'm a psychotherapist. I'm also a marriage and family therapist, licensed clinical social worker also. I'm also a certified integrative medicine mental health practitioner. And so I really help people to find natural solutions to mental health, naturopathic medicine, trying to help people to get off of, all the host of psychotropic medication that we have out there, all the medicines that can really be pollutants to the body, toxins to the body, although sometimes those medications are needed. And so I work with people on their diet, exercise, their lifestyle. I'm also a professor, adjunct professor for Fordham University. I teach graduate level social work classes, and I really, really enjoy that. I teach primarily a family-oriented therapy class. And so I do that. I do workshops as well. I work with adults mostly, or, I'd say 18 and up, folks 18 and up. And marriages are my passion. Relationships are my passion, helping people to really develop strong, healthy relationships because that impacts the whole family. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times in the African American community in particular, it's difficult to find a therapist who specializes in that, who is African American, who is also married, and who also has a good marriage. It's sad, really sad that we don't have all those factors readily in place. But I try to be that person, to be the example, but also to use my skills to help people to really build strong marriages, save their marriages from infidelity, communication issues, etc.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Powerful. Very, very powerful. I'm going to take you down, Dr. Reed, and bring up my partner and our partner for tonight, the Larger Than Life Foundation, Dana Marks. Dana, just welcome and thank you for the partnership, my sister. And just want to give it out to you just to say, why are you here and what is your foundation?
Well, in coming together as partners and as sisters in a joint mission to make sure that we continue to have conversations about mental health, we've actually, really spent a lot of time talking about this. And, through my foundation, the Larger Than Life Foundation, I'm the CEO and founder, was really centered around, living life larger than life without fear, stigma, or shame. In regards to just destigmatizing mental health. It really came out of a passion of, I have my brother behind me, Joshua Marks, who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And through his diagnosis and his journey and being along through that path with him, realizing the lack of resources and equities that we face in our communities. And Dr. Perez, Crawford said it earlier, both in the Black and the Latino community, we are of Panamanian descent. And so, really recognizing that these conversations need to be held. Unfortunately, through Joshua's journey, he did died by suicide in 2013. And it really it rattled me as being an older sister and really recognizing that we're not having these conversations. And when we are, we don't want to have them too late. And we want to make sure that we're continuing to talk about all aspects of mental health and why it's so important for us to bring that through the forefront. Joshua found his passion and his calling through culinary arts. So through the Larger Than Life Foundation, we are a community-based culinary arts program, along with a youth component of culinary therapy. So, giving that outlet, not only for a pathway for careers, creating financial and economic stability, we are also creating, just the platform of how do you take care of yourself holistically from, every aspect. So, using culinary arts program to provide a pathway for community dining, and also to provide a pathway for children to learn about the foods that we take in, how to grow your own food, your nutrition, really taking care of oneself, because it's so important. So, through our joint ventures and conversations and passions, I'm happy to be here and to continue this crucial conversation.
Yes, thank you so much, Dana. And to everyone out there, go follow the Larger Than Life Foundation. It's an amazing foundation, and we are proud to say that we are partners. And so this is personal, y'all. You just heard that Josh Marks, we're making sure that his life continues. Yeah. Tahimba, my nephew that also took his own life. This is for you. To everyone out there that has just embraced just my mental health and mental illness out there. This is for us, and myself included. And so we're just going to bring up the rest of the panel, and we're going to dive into this, because guess what? This is the Crucial 30, and we are going to bring content and talk about why is this election so important from a standpoint of just mental health. Why is this election so important from the perspective of mental health? And I'm just going to allow the panelists to just discuss and open up.
Especially in this year being one that we've never anticipated or experienced, I think this conversation is really brought to the forefront. We're facing not only a pandemic, but we're also facing isolation, socially, and, through the loss of work too. So there's so many components that we're being faced with. And I think that we're bringing more awareness to the individual and to the self and that mental health care and mental illness, because now we're seeing more cases on the rise. And so it's so important that we prioritize and we bring this conversation to the forefront.
I want to echo what Dana said, that, I think COVID just highlighted what all of us in mental health, the mental health profession, have been aware of, is that, our communities are deeply in need of services and do not have enough people to access those services in their community. And then, like Dr. Malam Reed said, they don't look like us. And so if you're afraid to get services to begin with, and then the people that you have to work with don't understand your family style, your religion, how you grew up, your communities, you're not going to be able to serve them in the same way. And we have lots of statistics to show that the health disparities have led to African Americans and Latinos and underserved populations dying at a higher rate, having more chronic conditions. Now with COVID, it's like that as well. And so that's why it's utterly that people get out and elect officials who can represent their needs.
And exactly, Dr. Crawford. And also, when we look at mental health right now, we look at anxiety and depression. The stats show, the latest studies show that 53% of our population are dealing with anxiety and depression issues. That's huge. That's 1 in 3 people. And that's up from 1 in 6, I believe, in 2019. And so, over half of our population is affected somehow, and also mental health providers are affected. We're all in this together. This is the first time that those of us that are mental health providers are going through a similar situation as to what our clients are going through as well. We see the suicide rate off the hook. I mean, it's through the roof. It's increased by like 10, last I heard. It's incredible. But also violence in families, domestic violence and violence toward children. I'm sure you've seen on the news, the increase in death rates, in crimes, family crimes, domestic violence crimes. And it's very, very difficult, and people are suffering financially right now, which impacts us in so many ways. Mental health, our ability to pay the rent, that's anxiety right there, to pay the rent, the mortgage. Are we going to have a job tomorrow? There's just a lot going on right now for everyone.
Yeah, just to echo what everyone was saying, I think, it's tough because like we, all these things compound upon each other, having the pandemic hit us at once and then having all these disparities shining a light. So, and then having, a government that basically is like gaslighting us and, telling us we're not sure, communicating things that may or may not be true, and then having to fact check. That's so much energy to output when you're already dealing with like, when's my next paycheck going to come in, or, how am I going to pay my rent? Like that just compounds, and then you don't have access to the resources that are going to, bring you to a place that you feel, at least at an equilibrium where you can be like, you can identify these things that are in your life and handle them and process them in a healthy way. So it's a huge wave, but it really starts at, getting people talking and really getting them access to the services that they need.
No, definitely. And it's so important. And you all touched on so many different aspects, because it's more than just going into a booth and voting. It's more than just that. It's more than just the president and the vice president that are impacting mental health decisions. And so when we think about that, what are some of the other aspects that relate to just our health in this election? What are, how does your vote impact food budgets and insurance options and other things that are impacting just mental health as a whole?
When you look at one of our
jump in. Oh, go ahead.
You can go ahead. You go ahead. Oh, okay. Okay. When you look at one of our candidates, who I'm not going to name, they're supporting a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, which is so important for mental health and people being able to access services. People are losing their jobs, and what happens to people when they lose their jobs? They lose their insurance. And mental health is a big component of that. And it is very, very difficult. And when you look at, the stigma that's already present in the African-American community in particular, with regards to mental health and getting a therapist, and then you put another obstacle in the way that a person can't even pay for it anyway, what are the chances that somebody is really going to reach out and try to get help? And so that's something to think about. And we have one candidate that wants to cap and limit federal funding to Medicaid and limit eligibility to Medicaid. That's a big deal. A lot of people are on Medicaid or Medicare. We've got somebody who wants to restrict reproductive health services and change immigration policies where immigrants don't have access to Medicaid and other, healthcare programs. And so a lot of that, we have to look at those things when we're selecting a candidate, because mental health is so important. And we don't know if you're not a person who goes to therapy, chances are at some point in your life, you're going to want to take advantage of that, or somebody else in your family is going to want to take advantage of that. So this is important to your family, and we have to look at it that way. We have to protect what's ours, our rights, and that includes mental health services as accessed through our medical plans.
Well, and one of the big issues I've noticed is if you can't even name systemic oppression as an issue, how can you begin to fix it? And so any candidate that doesn't recognize that there are systemic challenges, i.e. funding to schools, so that directly relates to the education that kids will get. And for a lot of the kids that I work with, that's where they get most of their meals during the day. That's also their first interaction with mental health services through social workers and counselors in the school. So if the schools are not receiving enough funding because of redlining and other issues, then the schools cannot serve the kids in the way that they need to, which then starts them off on a path of being disparate to kids in higher income areas. And so if we can't even acknowledge that that's a problem and that there's a problem with the system of housing in our communities, with the system of education, then there's absolutely no way that we can begin to fix these problems.
Yeah. And it's multi-layered. And, as you speak to, the concerns and the issues that we face on a regular basis, you think about the food insecurities and the role that has on mental health. Knowing when you're going to get your next meal, when are you going to be able to really be able to, go out and go to the grocery store, or even have the funds in order to do so. We also think about, career pathways. There's really, a concern with the lack of hopelessness and a lack of hope, because when you don't have those core determinants and those core access to everything that you need as a whole individual, then you have a lack of hope. You have a lack of, opportunities, and that plays a significant role in mental health. So when we think about that, we can't, like I said, can't just look at the surface layer. We have to look at every layer, and we have to align our vote with those representatives and those individuals, not only at the federal level, but at the local level, that represent the best interests of all of our communities. And we see that, and it's just, it's astonishing now that as Latino and the African-American community, that we've known this, for quite some time. This isn't a surprise to us. It's a surprise to everyone else. And now it's being highlighted and brought to the forefront. And so now we're having these conversations that we've been having, but now they're at a national level and people are perplexed. Our resources have been limited for quite some time now. So now we need to make sure, and it's on us and it's on the community as a whole to get out there and represent the individuals that represent us.
Exactly. I think everyone touched on all of the points. Like, I think that, you're talking about what's at stake, and, talking about, Black and brown communities voting. Like, we've been trying to do this for a while, but, like you said, like this problem is systemic, and, not having someone be like, this is an issue. Like, if you don't believe that there's a problem, you're not going to listen to solutions. And yeah, this is a big matzo ball.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I like that.
I like that.
I absolutely love that. I mean, and it's so much. Everything is integrated. And when we think about the reason why we started the narrative shift, and I must say that the narrative shift is not a political organization. We have a political campaign going on right now that's focusing on the importance of the election. However, we focus on 4 core values: education, mental health, protection, and financial stability. And so when you think about all of those as they integrate in society, how does your role in mental health, as being mental health professionals and advocates, how do you see all 4 of those integrating in what you do as well?
I think this education part, that's one of the things that really helped me, especially in my journey, is first identifying, is there a problem? And what does that even look like? And, for a long time, we just did not, at least I can speak for myself, I didn't have any understanding of like, oh, these things that I feel, I just thought that they were normal, when really they were just symptoms of a much larger problem. I remember being able to, finally acknowledge or identify that, oh, like these are symptoms of depression, or these are symptoms of anxiety. Okay, then who should I go to even get these things fixed? And then understanding that, like, wow, like the whole system is so difficult to access, and then that kind of just leads you into it. But I think education is where it really starts, is putting a naming what's the mental health struggle that you're going through.
Yeah, I will also add collaboration. Collaboration and partnership, the partnership that we have with the Narrative Shift. I also have partners here in the Chicagoland area, the Jones Foundation, where, my focus is really targeted in mental health. But as I mentioned, mental health is only a component of the overall health. So, in partnership with the Jones Foundation, they focus on the physical aspect. And then we continue on with, providing economic opportunities. And then we look at, how we can then address food insecurity. So, looking at partnership and developing relationships within the community, because we are more powerful together than we are alone. So leveraging those opportunities to continue to integrate this conversation head on.
As Dana was saying, I work in primary care, and constantly during the day, I am educating students, residents, parents, kids, teens on the integration of mental health and physical health. And as a psychologist, I look at it from the aspect of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to meet these people's basic needs before they're able to achieve anything else. So if you don't have a safe place to live, if you don't feel safe in your home, if you don't have food to eat, if you can't pay your bills, there's no way that I can start to work on your mental health, anxiety, depression, education, if you're not even eating, or you aren't feeling safe with your partner, or if you live in a trauma situation. So all of them are interconnected, and we're only able to improve a situation if we're working together in all of these areas at the same time.
I look at it from the perspective of mind, body, and soul. And I always tell my clients that in order to be balanced, you have to be balanced in all those areas. If you're off on one of those, you're out of balance, mind, body, and soul. And so my job is to help with mind and with body, diet, exercise, hormones, health, making sure that the person is going to a really good health practitioner. And then soul is more of my client's responsibility, but I try to direct them in that area as well. I think one of the neat things about being a therapist is that, when you look at those different areas, education and protection and financial stability, we get a chance to do a lot of psychoeducation and teaching our clients. And so it's really important to learn as much as we can as practitioners, as mental health people, so that we can share things with our clients and give them good referral sources, places to go and just things to learn about, and also to empower people. I think one of the problems with minority communities in particular is a lot of times we have a external locus of control. We don't feel like we're in control. We're so used to people doing stuff to us and discriminating against us and pushing us this way and that way. A lot of times we don't recognize how much power we have. Many times it just starts with little things, deciding what you want to study and working toward that and researching that area, and maybe then going and checking out some grants for that particular subject or whatever. It's small steps. And so I work with people and figuring out what they want to do, and then helping them get there many times through small steps of making sure that they're balanced, mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing, just because when you think about the mind, body, and soul, one can't be off. It all has to integrate. It all has to be connected. It reminds me of the book, what is it? The Body Keeps the Score. Thinking about the fact that if your mental capacity isn't on par with your physical capacity and your spiritual capacity, then you start to break down. And so those three components are just so important. And it's just, when I think about that, I also think about just self-care. And so, during this election season, self-care, especially, I love social media. I'm glad y'all are watching. Go ahead and share and repost. However, being on social media sometimes can really just kind of weigh heavy on you, especially during those times where you find someone giving out a tweet or a post that just doesn't sit right, or if you get a video that you reshare that's just like, I can't see that right now. So when we think about just this election season and we think about everything that's going on, how would you encourage self-care during this election, and how can people truly protect their own anxiety through it all?
Well, one, limit your time on social media. that could be one thing. Like you said, if you're looking at a lot of images that are disturbing, I think back to the George Floyd situation, like there was just an obscene amount of images for people to look at, which can be triggering each time you see that. So I really encourage people, try to find some other hobbies apart from screen time, because you don't want to just immerse yourself in a lot of negative energy. So getting outside is a lovely thing. Connecting with family and friends, if that's via Zoom because you're socially distancing, great. But find creative ways to connect with people and activities that you enjoy doing. And if you don't have those, now's a great time to pick up a new hobby and learn how to do something that you didn't do, because even just putting that mental energy towards learning something new can boost some of those endorphins to help your mood. So I think it's important for you to be knowledgeable about what's going on in the community, but there can be too much immersion in negative energy.
I absolutely agree. Like, I truly believe in, measuring the time that you spend on social media. And it's coming from me. I work in social media. So, and like, I'm perfectly happy to tell people, like, put the app down, close it. You don't need to, like, I turned off all my notifications. Like, I don't have them. Even my email, I did that recently because I just noticed I just kept going back. That little like red thing just kept, like, it was like a trigger point for me. So yeah, definitely stay away from social media as much as you can, especially if it's not, especially if it's not enriching you. So like, and be honest about it. Like, don't follow people just because you feel like you need to follow them. You don't need to follow anybody. Like, follow the people that encourage you, that, make you feel good about yourself, who you can connect with. And also in the terms of self-care, like, I think it'll be good to, find things that connect you with your body. Like, sit down and meditate, or, put your phone in the other room and just like listen to music, or, set aside some space, because it has to be intentional. Set aside some time and space to just be with yourself, get to know your body, like nestle in a little bit.
And I must say that is some good advice from someone that is a social media ambassador. If you are a social media ambassador, you're talking about Steven Sharp Jr., the social media ambassador of Instagram. Like, we're gonna put you out there. But if he is saying, hey, you know what? Hey, take some time for you. Take some time for yourself. Turn off the camera. Not right now. I need you to listen to this panel. However, I know that that's a lot, but sometimes you just have to unplug for yourself. And I know, Dana, you said you were jumping in there, and I wanted to get back to you.
No, I was going to say, Stephen, I second and ditto everything that you said, especially during this time and the news that keeps coming out and the updates. And you do have to draw those boundaries also in conversation. So limit, if there are touchy subjects you don't want to engage in, you're going to have to, limit those conversations at this time and intentionally unplugging. So I second and I ditto everything that you said. I'm gonna take a bath in there.
Yeah. Some essential oils, do something, light some incense.
Really, it is all about self-care during this time.
Yes,
so self-care is extremely important. I think that we should have a spice rack of self-care skills, right? If you think about a good cook, they don't just use salt and pepper. They've got all types of spices. You open their rack, and many times we just have one or two.
Yeah.
I call a friend and I go eat a hamburger or something, And so this is a really good time to develop those self-care skills, especially since a lot of places that we normally go, we can't go right now. We can't go to right now. So a lot of us have extra time on our hands. So that's really, really important. I think one thing I see a lot of people forgetting about is sunshine. Sunshine is really, really important. And as people of color, about 83% of us are deficient in vitamin D, which is huge. And when we are deficient in vitamin D, we tend to suffer from anxiety and depression more so. And so extremely important for us to get A lot of sunshine, the melanin in our skin blocks the sun's rays. So that's why it's even more important for us. And sleep is another one. Sometimes we forget that. That's a big deal, is getting enough sleep. Uninterrupted sleep is really, really important. Keeping our bodies in motion. Now, I'm older than all of you, but I'm probably in better shape than a lot of you. Okay. I'm bragging on myself, but I hate to see people who are sedentary. And, we live in this world where people are sedentary. I can tell a young person who's sedentary when they come to my office because they sit like this. They're not moving and they're not producing those endorphins in their body. And so I tell people, when you do your hair, move, dance. When you're cooking, move. If you have a job where you sit all the time, get up, stand up, every hour, try to be up for 10 minutes, standing desk. I have a bike desk back over here. It's a desk, but it's also a bike. And I ride it when I'm seeing my clients, and that'll keep you young and keep you feeling good. And it's easier to get through situations like we're going through, a pandemic, an election that may or may not turn out like we want. If we feel good, if our bodies feel good, if we're taking in the right nutrients, we're moving, we're getting sunshine, really, really important. And those hobbies that you all talked about are super important. Developing those hobbies, those skills, and breath. A lot of times we forget to breathe. And we need to breathe. I could tell you a long story. I don't have time now about a situation I was in. It was a panic situation. Got through it real calmly because I practice breathing daily. 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day is all it takes. Deep breaths, 4, 6, 8. Breathe in for 4, hold for 6, let go for 8. 5 minutes a day. You get in a tough situation, your brain will automatically say, breathe.
Yeah, definitely. All good tips, you all. I mean, this is just so powerful because I'm looking at the chat and I'm realizing how many people are saying, hey, you know what? I didn't know that. That spice rack of just understanding, being able to sit back and have that essential oils in the bath and just truly take 2 steps back so you can go 10 steps forward. Y'all, the world is heavy. But guess what? You can have strategies in place to make it a little bit lighter, just a little bit. And so, with that said, as we, we're getting closer and closer to November 3rd. I was telling the kids backstage before we came on that I said that I took off on November 4th just so that I can have a mental health day, just to breathe, just like Dr. Reed just said. So when you think about just whatever happened in this election, whoever is declared the winners, regardless of who gets in, as mental health professionals and advocates, if your choice does not win, if your ballot does not take that seat next January, or at a local or federal level, how does one bounce back? How do we make sure that our mental health is still intact and that we move forward with stopping the stigma?
Well, I think Dana mentioned this earlier. We have a strong history as people of color of bouncing back from adversity. So I just tell people, remember the shoulders that you stand on, because people have done it for generations. And the reality is November 3rd is one election. There are countless number of city council elections or state elections that will happen after this. Let that fuel your civic interest in your own community, because you can change your life a lot more by being involved in your local community. You can affect your schools, you can affect the healthcare in your communities, you can get involved in those ways, and then you can be the voice of change in your community. And hopefully that will give you, as Dr. Reed mentioned, more of an internal locus of control. You are actually doing something to move the needle in your community. So that would be my thing.
Yeah. And I agree. I think we should not lose sight of what we are up against. Mental health is not up for debate. and knowing that the election isn't going to automatically flip that switch for us. So now at this point, there's still work that we have to do. There's still progress that needs to take place. Those food deserts and the food insecurities that we face right now aren't going to go away. So, do we know that our journey, we might have to go a different route? That does not stop the work that we have ahead of us, as a result of the outcome of the election. Continue to stay focused on the long term, and Dr. Perez Crawford really shared, we stand on the shoulder of giants. We really do. And they were relentless in their efforts to get us to this point. Now it is on us to then get our generation and our next generation to the next point. So don't stop.
Yeah, definitely.
I look at my generation. I think we have, not everybody. I'm not, there's many of us are awesome, but I think overall we've let people down because we've gotten comfortable.
Yeah.
We got that house, a nice car, a nice job, and it's like, oh, we've arrived, and we don't have to worry about racism or discrimination. We don't have to fight anymore. And I think it's sad. I think, this is a wake-up call to a lot of people, and I see young people, like my kids' age, young adults really stepping up and, learning and getting out there and voting and talking to people and doing community activism. And I love that. I love seeing that. So whatever way this goes, I think there's going to be a change, and that people have been awoken, and sadly it's taken a lot of deaths also for that to happen. It's taken a lot of deaths, and that's the sad part of it. But I think that we're seeing a change in America where we're taking more of a responsibility now to stand up for our rights and to not be so comfortable.
Yeah.
I would also add, for people who are casting their vote for the first time, no matter what age you are, that just because the outcome did not turn out how you voted does not mean that your vote does not matter. Mm-hmm. And that, there is still hope. The fate of this country does not lie in the hands of a handful of people. It lies in the hands of our society. It lies in the hands of the groups of people that are fighting for equality and fighting for their rights and raising their voices for things that, for injustices. We run this government. We are the people. We run this. So don't get discouraged. I think the conversation around encouraging people to vote it's lying behind because people feel like their vote does not matter, or that their voices don't matter, and to encourage them and then have something like this happen. I'm this is just one election, like you said, one piece in this puzzle. So we have a ways to go.
We definitely have a way to go, and every panelist on this panel has said it. You matter. Your voice matters. Your vote matters, and your mental health matters. Mental health does not impact ethnicity. It does not impact just one race. It does not impact one sexuality. It does not impact one religion. It impacts everyone. Everyone. And so with that said, this is one of the subjects of many subjects that we can come together. We can stop the stigma. We can be better if we all come together and realize that mental health is real. It's real, y'all. And so with that said, I just want to bring up the last question. And I know we're over time, but this is so important that we are going to keep going tonight, and just bear with us. And so, when we think about just the last, question, what advice would you give to the world as it relates to mental health with this crucial election, but just overall, what advice would you give to the ones that want to give up right now? What advice would you give to the ones that are at a crossroad and they don't understand what's going on? What could you give to the mom and the dad out here that don't know how to help their child because they don't understand what their child is going through? what advice would you give?
I say what Dr. Reed said earlier, take an internal locus of control, meaning take your destiny by the reins and make your voice heard. It doesn't mean just vote in elections. It means at your child's school, talk to the principal, be involved. When you're in a doctor's office, ask questions. Make sure that people tell you and explain to you in ways that you can understand. Be in control of your destiny. Do not let the outside forces control you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want others to remember, we are our first advocates. You advocate for yourself, you advocate for your family. You know, we have to keep in mind that these issues are not going to change overnight. These conversations are no longer up for debate. These are real issues. And as I mentioned early on, you know, now we're getting more exposure because the world had to stop. It really had to stop as a result of a pandemic. Let's not continue the pandemics that we face within our own communities. We have to get out there and make sure that our voices are heard, our interests are represented, and that we empower not only ourselves, our communities. Grab a friend, grab a cousin, grab everybody and go and vote. Vote like your life depended on it. Vote like your mental health depended on it. Vote like your next meal depended on it. Vote with that interest in mind.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I like what Dana said, about helping, go grab somebody. I was voting this morning. I had to stand in line for an hour and 45 minutes, and that was a long wait in the heat. And it was really, really difficult, but it was wonderful to see so many minorities out voting. And when you think about the African-American population in particular, we make up 13% of the population nationwide. That's a really good chunk. I mean, that's enough to turn an election one way or another. And I think that we become so self-focused in our society that it's important to reach out and try to help somebody else up. When we help somebody else up, we also help ourselves up as well. So to think about who in your neighborhood or who in your community can you impact, can you help, can you influence? I was thinking today, I hope I don't sound like I'm rambling, but when I was standing out there for an hour and 45 minutes, I had a lot of time to think. And I was thinking about, elderly people, African-American elderly people, how are they going to stand in those lines? You think about how are they going to stand, if those lines continue to be that long and they're weaving around buildings, how are they going to do it? I saw several older people have to get out of lines. But I also saw some older people come with chairs. They had chairs and they had water. And there was a couple, they had somebody come and get them and take them back to their car where they could sit in the air condition and sit for a while and then get back out there and stand in line eventually. And so just helping people like that, how can we help each other? Because that's how we will help each other up. You look at Asians, they're wonderful at helping each other economically. They buy from each other, right? Asian gets the Asian doctor, gets the Asian accountant, et cetera, Asian insurance person. And we tend to not really think a lot of times, I tend to many times forget how I can help my fellow African Americans in an economic way. I do mental health all the time. I don't always think about those other ways I can help people. So I encourage y'all to focus, everybody out there to focus on how you can help somebody else during this election time.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. And I think that, at least it helped me is something that I had heard in a podcast. It's like to recognize the divinity in everyone. And I think that really helps, in your decision making, you were talking about helping elderly people in the lines, recognize that it's really easy to just kind of walk on by and just, be in your own head, but look up, look around, listen, start like using your ears, use your senses, get in your body, and then start looking out and like see the divinity in other people. And that'll change your perspectives and how you vote and how you advocate, where you spend your money, who you speak up for. they're all interconnected.
No, definitely, definitely. And you all, I just appreciate every single one of you this evening, because, you know, what you have shared with the world is going to shift the narrative. What you share with the world, not just today, but throughout your journeys, are shifting one mind at a time. And that is what the narrative shift is all about. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you for your contributions for this evening. And we know that many are out there struggling with mental illness, and it's okay. It is okay to struggle with a mental illness. However, it's also okay to reach out for help. It is okay, because at the end of the day, if your leg was broke, you need to go get a cast. And so if you are dealing with something, you know, take our names down. You know, you have therapists on this call. You have professional counselors on this call. It does not matter. If you are struggling, reach out. You are not alone. We are better together. And in our Black and brown communities, we must and we will stop the stigma. And so with that said, everyone, we just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. This is the Crucial 30. Your vote matters, your mental health matters, and you matter. And until next time, we'll be on this Thursday with an exciting group of panelists talking about the impact on education. You don't want to miss it. We have panelists that are coming from all over. We have the founder of Black Educators Rock. We have former Teacher of the Years on the national level. And so, guys, you don't want to miss it, just like you didn't want to miss tonight. Reshare this post. Make sure someone hears the blessings that came out of this conversation. And until then, this is the Crucial 30, and we are the narrative shift.
The Crucial 30.
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 It's the Crucial 30.
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 The Crucial